Hey loves, my name is Iphannie and this is the Iphanniebgentle podcast. Can your childhood affect your love languages and your love styles? I'm here to tell you it can. I recently stumbled across some posts on Twitter which broke down a person's love style based on their childhood trauma, and it was kind of like an aha moment for me. I realized that a lot of people who go through traumatic childhood experiences tend to love differently than people who have not really experienced many traumatic childhood experiences. Because of this, I was able to understand how to love people around me based on their needs and their understanding of love. It has truly made our relationships flourish because they feel heard, seen, and understood. So here are 5 different levels or types of people who love differently based on their traumatic childhood. Number 1 is a pleaser. Pleasers typically had to deal with extremely critical but also overly protective parents. They always try to be good and try to do everything right and to not be a burden on their family. Pleasers are generally very attentive to others. They can read their fellow human beings and they have a fine sense of their mood swings and how they're feeling. It is precisely those skills that they use to meet the needs of others, primarily their parents. In order to be able to lead a healthy and stable relationship, it would be good for the pleaser to learn to take their feelings seriously and share their feelings with their partners or their parents, instead of always doing what is expected of them. I have a friend who, growing up, had parents who were extremely overprotective. They would criticize every little thing she did, from the way she spoke to the way she handled defeat. It got to the point where she started to lose her voice and her sense of self because she was so focused on ensuring that everyone around her was satisfied and felt seen and heard. She forgot how to have feelings about anything, really. Recently, we spoke about how she could put her foot down and not only put her foot down with people that she didn't know, but put her foot down with people within her circle, and how to say and mean the simple but stern word no. It has been a work in progress, but a recent situation caused her to realize that she needs to learn to prioritize herself and let others around her know that she too has a voice, which she is learning to use. It's crazy to think that at the age of 29, some of us are still learning what our boundaries are and how we can assert them so that people do not treat us like a doormat. Number 2 is the victim. Victims typically have low self-esteem, even in adulthood. Some live with anxiety and depression. We must remember people always prefer a familiar to an unfamiliar, even if it's associated with pain. Victims are very passive in relationships and just kind of let things happen. If things go very well for a long time, they develop fears because they always fear that they will once again become a victim of their circumstances and or relationships. In order to be able to lead a healthy and stable relationship, it is recommended that the victim learn to feel self-love and to stand up for themselves instead of putting up with everything. There are so many people who feel as though they are a victim in their relationship. Maybe their spouse cheated on them, or they grew up where domestic violence was a forefront of their households, which causes them to fear the unknown. Because let's be real, we never know how far someone will go when they're upset. There's always a what if that plays in the back of a victim's mind. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I say or ask too many questions? What if I say something or do something that triggers them without knowing? There are always what ifs. And again, these are all valid points, but if we learn to love ourselves, no matter what the outcome of that relationship is, we will have the self-esteem and self-worth to keep pushing forward. So many of my friends have grew up in households where there was domestic violence, which caused them to sometimes end up in relationships that also have some form of domestic violence because it was normal for them to deal with a dysfunctional family. They now battle with anxiety, depression, or both. And it's hard to break that kind of cycle, especially because some of us fear the unknown. In our minds, we know what this person will do and how far they will go when they're upset, but we aren't sure what would happen if we got with someone else. The problem with this type of logic is there's two sides of it. Yes, you can leave a relationship where someone is emotionally abusive and end up with someone who is emotionally and physically abusive, or you can leave an abusive relationship and end up in a relationship full of love and light and protection. You never know until it happens. So number 3 is the controller. They usually felt neglected and barely protected. They had to learn early to take care of themselves and be independent. Controllers typically don't associate anger with vulnerability, but rather see it as a means of feeling stronger. They are extremely reluctant to leave their comfort zone because they feel exposed and defenseless. They prefer to solve problems alone and in their own way. In relationships, controllers behave very dominantly and patronizingly. They can also try to control their partners. In order to be able to lead a healthy relationship, it would be advisable for controllers to learn to trust, let go, and get a grip of their own anger. I have come to the realization that I have some controlling qualities. I'm not gonna hold you, I really do. Because it's hard for me to trust people the older I get. I have to learn to let go of my trust issues and allow people in my circle whom I trust with my life. It becomes hard to allow someone to help me through my problems, so I tend to be everyone else's shoulder to cry on while having no one to lean on for my own support. I recently was faced with a situation in which I leaned on a couple of friends for emotional support, and it felt good to know that they were there and they were able to support me in my time of need, especially because I don't depend on people for emotional support very often. Being married has been a challenge for me because it comes a time where I have to relinquish control, especially to my husband, and it's really hard for me. We're both Scorpios and we're both controlling. My sweetheart tells me all the time that I just need to take a step back because he got this, and I've been learning after being with him for 10 years now that he is more than capable of delivering on his commitments. So I have definitely been learning to take a step back and kind of let him handle certain situations. And it feels good to allow him to do that. The next one is number 4, which is bear with me, vacillator. Vacillator, that word sucks ass, okay? For those who don't know what a vacillator is, it's someone who is indecisive. So for a vacillator, their own parents were primarily unpredictable. As children, vacillators never had a feeling that they were important or even a priority for their parents. On the contrary, they lived with the constant fear of being let down by them. Vacillators typically develop a pronounced and longing for love. They want stability and reliability from a relationship. As an adult, they tend to idolize love and partnership. That is why they get doubts and fear with the smallest conflicts and difficulties. In order to have a stable, healthy relationship, this love type would do well to learn how to keep calm and give a relationship time to develop naturally instead of committing themselves rashly and with a highly probability of being disappointed in the end. Being able to make up your mind as an adult is extremely important, and being in a relationship where you know that, hey, maybe this week you'll pick dinner and I can take a break and not have to think about it. Things like that will cause a rift in a relationship. I remember my sweetheart and I literally just sat there and stared at each other because sometimes I just get burnt out on food and I don't know what to eat. And then you'll make a suggestion and he's like, I don't really feel like eating that. And I'm like, okay, so what do you feel like eating? He's like, I don't know. And we were literally just sitting there staring at each other. So those memes where people talk about couples that would rather starve than make a decision about what's for dinner, it's kind of the same thing. Sometimes the best thing for you to do is to make a decision and stick with it. We must learn to trust our abilities to make an educated and rational decision instead of waiting for someone else to decide what's right for our lives. In a vacillator relationship, there's a lot of times where I see it a lot in women where they'll just kind of like let the man figure everything out and they're just kind of like off to the side. If that works for your relationship, great. But at the same time, we must learn the power that we have in being able to make decisions for ourselves as well. So that's that. Number 5 is the avoider. As children, avoiders are taught by their parents that feelings make us weak and that we should strive for independence at all times. They learn early on to be independent and to put aside their emotions and needs. As adults, avoiders keep other people at a distance as much as possible and rely more on logic and rational arguments than on their own feelings. For them, there is hardly anything more uncomfortable than the mood swings of others. In order to be able to lead a healthy and stable relationship, it is recommended that the avoider type learns to let others close to them and deal openly and honestly with their feelings. Now, I know there's a lot of guys that tend to be the avoider. They are forced to be independent. They're told that men control their feelings. They don't show their emotions, and if they do, it makes them weak. And it doesn't make you a real man. But I believe in the complete opposite. I believe the complete opposite to be true. A man that's willing to be open and honest with their feelings, and they're openly expressive with their feelings with others and allow people to understand how they feel and where they're coming from, not only builds support within a male-female relationship or just a regular couple relationship that could be male-female, male-male, female-female, but it also builds a sense of self and a sense of emotional stability. It lets your partner know that you trust them. It lets your partner know that you trust them with everything, with your emotions, and it really opens up another avenue of love. There's nothing wrong with being open and honest about your feelings and letting people know exactly how you feel. And there's also nothing wrong with shedding a tear or two, gentlemen. So please don't make people feel like, or don't make people make you feel like you should not cry because you're a man and real men don't cry, because that's a whole bunch of shit. Like, that's a whole bunch of bullshit. As your partner, we love to be your cornerstone, your foundation, your shoulder to cry on. If you need to cry, it's perfectly okay to cry with your spouse or with your friends or with your family. We will respect it. Like, there's no judgment. It's a no judgment zone, especially when it comes to your emotions. I feel like a lot of guys nowadays, they don't understand or don't know how to channel their emotions positively, and so it's just a whole bunch of stuff that gets bottled up, and then when they explode, everyone calls them crazy or dangerous, or they just don't appreciate a man's ability to express himself. So I'm here to tell you that it is okay to cry, man. It's okay to cry. Simple as that. Don't feel like your feelings are going unnoticed, and don't feel like someone who is telling you that you don't need to be crying actually cares about you, because let's be real, there's nothing wrong with shedding a tear. There's certain situations where the only way to get that emotion out is by crying. So that's simple as that. That is all for this episode. I hope you guys really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really insightful when I first read it. It really piqued my interest, and it made me look at people's relationships with others completely different. So again, that's all for this episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Iphanniebgentle podcast. I wish you nothing but light, love, and a drama-free future, and I will see you guys in my next episode. Make sure you guys are subscribing on YouTube as well. I do have a YouTube channel where I post like the video version. And it's just Iphannie Be Gentle. So you guys can go check out the video version if you guys are ever interested in seeing me and seeing the commentary or the facial expressions that I make when I talk, because I'm very expressive for some reason. But yeah, that's all for this episode. Make sure you guys are telling your friends as well to subscribe to my podcast. I'd really appreciate it. I've been getting a growing audience and I've really been enjoying it. And I've also been enjoying the messages that I've been getting from you guys. I know last week I didn't post, and I think the week before that I didn't post either. It's been really hectic at school, so that is why. But I am back on it, and I will be posting again next week. If you guys have any suggestions, you can head over to my website at Iphanniebgentelepodcast.com to send over any questions, comments, or any suggestions that you guys have. Or if you guys just want to listen to the podcast on the website, you guys can absolutely do that as well. And I just want to say thank you guys for all of the support. I really appreciate it. I'm coming up to my 1 year of launching my podcast, and it has truly been a blessing and really has opened up my eyes to the difference that me actually expressing myself makes, not only with you guys but with myself, because it feels really good to just be able to talk about things and express myself. And you guys can kind of go back if there's an episode that you guys are like, hey, what was she doing in this situation, or how would she feel about this, or what was her thoughts on this type of topic. You guys can always go back and listen to it. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys in my next episode. Besitos.